Let me tell you about a man named Eddie Kowalski. Eddie was a customer of mine for 30 years. Worked at the Navy Yard in Brooklyn, then later for Con Edison. Good union job, good benefits, steady paycheck. He came into my shop every 6 months like clockwork. Same pair of work boots, needed new soles because he walked those job sites like a man on a mission. Eddie talked about retirement the way some men talk about women, with longing, with fantasy. Yes, he'd say, sitting in my chair while I worked on his boots. The day I turn 50, I'm done. I'm out. No more alarm clocks, no more bosses, just me, a fishing rod, and the rest of my life. He said this for years, and in 1982, the year he turned 50, Eddie Kowalski did exactly what he said he'd do. He retired, walked away from a job that was paying him good money, threw himself a party, bought a boat, used but still a boat, told everyone who would listen that he'd figured out the secret to life. Get out early, enjoy it while you can. I saw Eddie about 3 years later. He wasn't fishing, he was back in my shop, but not as a customer. He was asking if I needed help. Any help, sweeping floors, running errands, anything. The boat was gone, the savings were almost gone, and Social Security, he couldn't touch it for another 9 years. Eddie Kowalski retired at 50 and almost lost everything, not because he was stupid, but because he didn't understand how the numbers actually worked. And I'm willing to bet some of you watching this are thinking about doing the same thing. So, let me explain it to you. Not like a financial advisor, I'm a cobbler. What do I know about spreadsheets? But like someone who's watched people make this decision for decades, some of them got it right. Some of them got it right. Most of them didn't. First thing you need to understand, Social Security doesn't care when you retire. It only cares when you claim. Eddie thought that because he was done working, the government would start sending him checks. That's not how it works. Never has been. The earliest you can claim Social Security is 62. Not 50, not 55, 62. So if you retire at 50, you've got at least 12 years where you're funding your own life. 12 years of no paycheck, no Social Security, just you and whatever you've managed to save. Can you do it? Sure, some people can, but you better have a plan and you better have the money. Eddie didn't. He had a vague idea that things would work out. He had some savings, a small pension, and a lot of optimism. What he didn't have was 12 years worth of living expenses sitting in an account somewhere. So here's the first thing I want you to do if you're thinking about retiring early. Calculate exactly how much money you need to live on for every year between when you stop working and when you can claim Social Security and when you can claim Social Security. Not a rough estimate, exact numbers, rent or mortgage, food, utilities, insurance. And let me tell you about insurance, because that's another thing Eddie didn't think about. When you leave your job, you often leave your health coverage too. And if you're 50 years old and need to buy your own insurance, you better have deep pockets. Eddie's wife needed surgery in 1984. No job, no insurance. They burned through half their savings paying for it. Don't be Eddie. Second thing, when you claim matters almost as much as how much you've earned. This is the part most people don't understand. So, let me explain it simply. If you claim Social Security at 62, the earliest possible age, you get about 70% of what your full benefit would be. 70% for the rest of your life if you wait until 67, what they call full retirement age for people born after 1960, you get 100%, and if you wait until 70, you get 124%. Now, that might not sound like a big difference, but let me put it in real numbers. Say your full benefit at 67 would be $2,000 a month. If you claim at 62, you'd get about $1,400. If you wait until 70, you'd get almost $2,500. That's a difference of $1,100 every single month for the rest of your life. Over 20 years of retirement, that's the difference between having an extra $264,000 or not. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Can you afford to wait? If you retire at 50, can you fund yourself for 20 years until you can claim at 70 and get the maximum benefit? Most people can't. Most people who retire early end up claiming at 62 because they need the money and they lock themselves into that reduced benefit forever. I'm not saying don't retire early. I'm saying understand what it costs. Third thing, and this is the one that got Eddie in the end, Social Security calculates your benefit based on your 35 highest earning years. 35 years. That's the number they use.
35 years. That's the number that you...
They take your 35 best years of income, adjust them for inflation, average them out, and use that number to figure out what you get every month. Now, here's the problem. What if you don't have 35 years of work history? No. What if you started working at 20 and retired at 50? That's only 30 years. In that case, the Social Security Administration doesn't just ignore the missing years. They fill them in with zeros. 5 years of zeros, dragging down your average. Let me show you what that looks like. Say you made an average of $60,000 a year for 30 years. That's $1.8 million in lifetime earnings. And sounds good, right? But Social Security divides by 35, not 30. So, your average indexed monthly earnings drop, and your monthly benefit drops with it. We're talking potentially hundreds of dollars a month gone because you didn't have enough years. So, here's what you need to find out. How many years of earnings do you have on record with Social Security? You can check this. Go online, Cray. Create an account at sa.gov and look at your statement. It shows every year you've worked and what you earned. If you're thinking about retiring at 50, count those years. Do you have 35? If not, understand that every missing year is a zero that's going to reduce your benefit. Maybe that's acceptable to you. Maybe you have enough other savings that a smaller Social Security check doesn't matter. But you should at least know what you're giving up. Let me tell you about someone who did it right. Her name was Margaret Okonkwo. She was a teacher in the New York public school system for 32 years. Came into my shop to get her Sensible Flats resold. Teachers walk miles every day, even if they never leave the building. Margaret retired at 53, earlier than Ed even, but she did it differently. First, she had a pension. 32 years in the system meant she got a decent monthly check starting the day she retired, and not Social Security that came later, but enough to cover her basic expenses. Second, she'd been saving in her 403B. That's like a 401k for teachers since she was 25 years old, 28 years of contributions growing and compounding. By the time she retired, she had a cushion. Third, and this is the smart part, she didn't touch her Social Security until she turned 70. She lived on her pension and her savings for 17 years, letting that Social Security benefit grow. When she finally claimed at 70, she got the maximum amount, and because teacher salaries had gone up over the years, her 35 highest earning years were solid, no zeros, no penalties. Margaret lived to be 91. That's 21 years of maximized Social Security benefits. 21 years of a check that was almost twice what it would have been if she'd claimed at 62. The difference between Eddie and Margaret wasn't luck. It was planning. Eddie had a dream. Margaret had a spreadsheet. Both of them retired early. Only one of them did it rig. 8. HT. Now, let me talk about something else people forget. The opportunity cost of leaving work early. For most people, your highest earning years are your 50s and 60s. That's when you've got the most experience, the most seniority. Often the highest salary you'll ever make. If you retire at 50, you're walking away from potentially 15 to 20 years of peak earnings. And remember, Social Security uses your 35 highest earning years. If you keep working into your 60s, those high earning years start replacing the lower earning years from when you were young. Your benefit goes up, but if you retire at 50, those good years never happened. You're stuck with whatever you earned in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, and that average stays lower. I knew a man, customer named Jerome Patterson, worked in construction his whole life, who almost retired at 52. He was tired. His body hurt. He wanted out. But his wife convinced him to stay until 58, 6 more years. At that point, he was a foreman making the best money of his career. Those 6 years replaced some of his early years when he was just a laborer making not much more than minimum wage. His Social Security benefit went up by almost $300 a month compared to what it would have been. $300 a month for the rest of his life. Jerome lived to be 84. That 6 extra years of work put an additional $70,000 in his pocket over the course of his retirement. So before you walk away at 50, ask yourself, what am I leaving on the table? Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not telling you that retiring at 50 is wrong. Some people have enough money that Social Security is just a bonus. Good for them. If you saved and invested well, if you have a pension or other income, if you can truly afford to walk away, then walk away. Life is short. I know that better than most, and some people's bodies give out before 50. Construction workers, nurses, anyone who does physical labor for decades. They may not have a choice. You can't keep doing that work forever. Your knees won't let you. Your back won't let you. Sometimes early retirement isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. I respect that. My hands started giving me trouble in my 60s, arthritis. Some days I could barely hold my tools. But I kept going because the shop was all I had and because the work gave me purpose. Not everyone has that option. What I'm telling you is this: know what you're getting into. Don't be Eddie dreaming about fishing while the numbers crumble beneath you. Don't assume that because you're done working, someone will take care of you. They won't. Not until you're 62, at the earliest, and even then, only if you've done the math right. Let me give you some practical steps. 1. Check your Social Security statement. Go to saad.gov. Create an account. Look at your earnings history. See how many years you have and see what your estimated benefit would be at 62, 67, and 70. Just take 15 minutes. Do it this week. 2. Calculate your debt. If you want to retire at 50, how much money do you need to live on between 50 and whenever you plan to claim Social Security? Be realistic. Include health care, include inflation, include the things that go wrong. Because things always go wrong. 3. Think about health care. This is the one that kills people's early retirement plans. If you're leaving a job with health insurance, you need a plan. Can you get on a spouse's insurance? Can you afford marketplace coverage? Medicare doesn't kick in until 65. That's 15 years of paying for your own insurance. If you retire at 50. 4. Consider the opportunity cost. What would happen to your Social Security benefit if you worked 5 more years, 10 more years? Sometimes those extra years make a bigger difference than you'd think. 5. Talk to someone who knows the numbers. I'm not that person. I fit shoes. But there are financial advisors, there are planners, there are people whose job is to help you figure this out. A few hundred for professional advice now could save you tens of thousands later. I never retired. Not really. I slowed down. After the shop finally closed in 2005, I stopped taking customers, but I never stopped making a school. Still do sometimes. My hands aren't what they were, but they still remember how. My wife Gloria used to joke that I'd die at my workbench, needle in hand. She wasn't far wrong. Work was how I made sense of the world. Retirement to me always seemed like giving up, but that's me. That's not everybody. Some people need to stop, need to rest, need to spend their last good years doing something other than working. I understand that. I respect it. What I don't respect is going into it blind. What I don't respect is assuming that everything will work out without doing the math. What I don't respect is ending up like Eddie Kowalski, 63 years old, asking me for a job sweeping floors because he didn't plan. I'm 106 years old. I've been around longer than Social Security itself. Did you know that the program started in 1935? I was 16. I remember people talking about it like it was some kind of miracle. The government was going to take care of you when you got old, but it was never meant to take care of you entirely. It was meant to be one piece of a larger. Social Security was supposed to be a floor, not a ceiling. Too many people treat it like the ceiling, like it's all they need, like it'll be enough. For most people, it's not. Especially if you retire early, especially if you claim early, especially if you haven't done the work to understand what you're actually getting. So do the work now before you make any decisions. Eddie Kowalski didn't, and he spent the last third of his life paying for it. Margaret Anquo did. And she spent her last years comfortable traveling, helping her grandchildren with college. Same choice, different outcomes. The difference was 30 minutes with a calculator and the willingness to face reality instead of dreaming. I know retirement sounds romantic. I know 50 sounds young. I know you're tired, but tired isn't a financial plan. Dreams aren't a budget. It'll work out isn't a strategy. Do the math. Know the numbers. Make a real plan, and then if you still want to retire at 50 and you can actually afford it, go live your life. You've earned it. Just don't end up sweeping floors at 63 because you didn't bother to check. Aria dirty.